Picture this for a second. Two friends graduate from college with the same marketing degree. They both get hired by the same company, both earning $75,000 a year. They move to the same city, pay similar rent, and start their careers at basically the exact same moment. Now fast forward 20 years. One of them is semi-retired, spending random Tuesdays traveling and doing whatever they want. The other one is still stuck in the same cycle of work, bills, and wondering why their bank account never seems to grow. Same degree, same income, same starting point. So what changed? How do two people who begin in almost identical situations end up with completely different financial lives? And no, it's not just luck. It's also not some secret investing strategy that wealthy people guard like it's classified information. I'm Vanessa, and I like breaking down how money actually works in real life. Not the overly complicated stuff, just the habits that quietly determine whether someone builds wealth or stays stuck. So if you've ever looked at your paycheck and thought, I make decent money, why does it still feel tight? Then this video might help connect a few dots. Let me start with something that honestly surprised me when I first saw it. Recent research shows that about 1/3 of people earning more than $200,000 per year say they live paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. People making roughly $16,000 a month still feel financially stressed. Now, if you're watching this while making something closer to $50,000 a year, you might be thinking, okay, those people must just be terrible with money. And honestly, there's some truth to that. But here's the part that's really interesting. The habits that keep someone broke at $200,000 are exactly the same habits that keep someone broke at $50,000. The numbers are bigger. The behavior is identical. Think about it like this. If someone struggles to manage $1,000 responsibly, suddenly giving them $10,000 usually doesn't fix the underlying problem. Money doesn't automatically make people better with money. Sometimes it actually does the opposite. Because higher income can create a false sense of security. People feel like they're doing fine, right up until they realize their spending has quietly expanded to match their paycheck. So, what actually separates people who build wealth from people who stay stuck? Why do some people slowly accumulate money while others never seem to get ahead, no matter how much they earn? It usually comes down to 3 very common mistakes, and 3 habits that wealthy people tend to master early. Let's start with the mistakes, because chances are you'll recognize at least one of them in your own life. The first wealth killer is something called lifestyle inflation, and this one sneaks up on people. Here's how it usually happens. You get a raise at work. Maybe you go from $52,000 to $65,000. After taxes, that might mean several hundred extra dollars in your account each month. At first, it feels like a huge improvement. So maybe you upgrade your apartment a little. Maybe you start ordering takeout more often. Maybe you decide it's finally time for a nicer car or some new subscriptions. Individually, none of these things feel like a big deal. But a few months later, that extra income has quietly disappeared into your new lifestyle, and you're right back where you started, still living paycheck to paycheck, just with nicer stuff. What's crazy is that this pattern repeats itself at almost every income level. Someone earning $35,000 thinks life will be easy once they hit $55,000. Someone earning $55,000 believes $80,000 is the turning point. Someone earning $80,000 is convinced 6 figures will solve everything. But what usually happens is simple. As income increases, spending increases right along with it. So financially, they stay in the exact same position. It's like running faster and faster on a treadmill that never actually moves you forward. I once knew someone who increased their salary from about $45,000 to almost $125,000 over a few years. From the outside, it looked like a huge success. But they were actually more stressed about money at $125,000 than they were at $45,000. Why? Because the moment their income increased, their lifestyle increased too. They moved into a luxury apartment, upgraded their car, started taking frequent trips, joined expensive fitness studios. Now their high salary wasn't freedom, it was pressure. They needed that income just to maintain everything they had built around it. Miss one paycheck, and the whole system starts wobbling. Now compare that to someone who gets the same raises, but keeps their lifestyle relatively modest. Maybe they upgrade a few things here and there, but instead of trying to look wealthy, they focus on becoming financially secure. So, a large portion of every raise gets saved or invested instead of spent. Over a few years, that difference becomes enormous. The second mistake that keeps people broke is debt. And I'm not just talking about credit cards. I mean the entire lifestyle built around borrowing. Here's a common scenario. Someone earns $75,000 a year, which sounds pretty solid. But they have a $450 car payment, credit card minimums, student loans, and maybe a personal loan from some emergency a few years ago. Before they even start thinking about saving or investing, hundreds of dollars every month are already committed to lenders. Now compare that to someone with the same income but no debt. That person suddenly has several hundred extra dollars every month they can save, invest, or use when opportunities appear. Over the course of a year, that difference can easily reach $8,000 to $10,000. But the real issue with debt isn't just the payments. Debt changes the way people think about money. When you're carrying high interest balances, your financial life becomes focused on damage control instead of growth. You're trying to stay afloat rather than trying to build something. Here's a simple example. Two employees both receive a $6,000 bonus. Person A has credit card debt with a high interest rate. Person B is completely debt-free. Person A uses the bonus to pay down their balance, which is the responsible move. But all that money really does is move them closer to zero. Person B invests their bonus. 10 years later, that investment may have doubled. Same bonus, same income, completely different result. Debt doesn't just cost interest, it costs opportunity. The third mistake is surprisingly simple. Most people have no clear idea where their money goes. They know their salary, they know their rent or mortgage, but everything else is just a blur of transactions. Coffee here, lunch out, online orders, streaming services, weekend spending. None of it feels large enough to worry about individually. But together, those small purchases can add up to thousands of dollars every month. Meanwhile, someone who actually tracks their spending understands exactly where their money is going. They can spot waste quickly. They can adjust their habits. And sometimes that awareness alone can free up hundreds or even thousands of dollars per year. Now, here's the interesting part. These three mistakes aren't really about math. They're mostly about psychology. People who struggle financially often operate with what psychologists call a scarcity mindset. They feel like money should be enjoyed immediately before it disappears. So when they receive extra income, their first instinct is to spend it. People who build wealth tend to think differently. They follow three habits that gradually shift the entire trajectory of their finances. The first habit is understanding the power of time and compound growth. Money invested early has far more time to grow. Imagine two people who both start working at age 25. One invests a few $1,000s per year for the first 10 years of their career. Then they stop investing entirely. The other person waits until age 35 to begin investing, but contributes larger amounts for decades. Surprisingly, the early investor can still end up with more money in retirement. Not because they invested more, but because their money had extra time to compound. Time is one of the most powerful factors in investing. The second habit is paying yourself first. Most people save whatever money remains at the end of the month, which usually isn't much. Wealthy people reverse that process. The moment their paycheck arrives, a portion of it automatically moves into savings or investments. Only after that do they figure out how to live on the remainder. This approach removes the constant decision-making around saving. It becomes automatic, and over time, that consistency builds serious wealth. The third habit is focusing on assets instead of liabilities. An asset puts money into your pocket over time. A liability takes money out. People who build wealth prioritize acquiring assets and limiting liabilities whenever possible. For example, two people might both decide they need a car. One finances a brand new vehicle with a large monthly payment. The other buys a reliable used car and invests the money they would have spent on that payment. Years later, the first person owns a depreciated car. The second person owns a car too, but they also have a growing investment portfolio. Same need, very different financial outcome. Over time, these habits create something powerful, a wealth feedback loop. The more assets someone owns, the more those assets generate income or growth, which allows them to acquire even more assets. At first, it grows slowly, but eventually it accelerates. So in the end, the difference between ending up wealthy or financially stuck usually isn't your salary. It's the small decisions repeated over time. Avoid lifestyle inflation. Stay out of unnecessary debt. Pay attention to where your money goes. And invest consistently for the long term. The person relaxing on a beach in 20 years probably didn't get lucky. They just made slightly different choices at the same opportunities. And those choices compounded.